Now what I am going to do is deal with a ring of infinite number of atoms. Okay, when it is a infinite number of atoms, then I can actually look at it as a chain or ring, it does not matter, because ring and chain are the same when you have an infinite number of atoms. Now what I will do is the following, that is, for this I can actually write down the lowest energy state. That is very simple. The lowest energy state this can be written down as plus 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 plus. I can go on. If the time were to be infinite, then I would have done an infinite number of things. But anyway, this is the nodeless state and this is the most stable state. And what is the least stable state that I have? The highest energy state will be having nodes everywhere. Between any two hydrogen atoms which are neighbors, you will have a node. So this is the least stable or the highest energy state. Okay, so supposing you want to think of a zero energy state, what you would say? I will have alternately bonding and anti-bonding molecular orbitals. So in that case I will have a plus, plus which is bonding, minus is anti-bonding, minus bonding, plus anti-bonding, plus minus minus. So this has equal number of bonding and anti-bonding interactions if you want to look at. So this will be a non-bonding state most probably. I can actually write down two different non-bonding states which are actually the following. That is, I can, instead of plus, I can start with a minus, and then first interaction is non-bonding, and plus minus minus plus plus minus. So you see that this actually the anti-bondings are shifted by one bond to the right, and this will be linearly independent because there is no way you can represent this as a multiple of the other non-bonding state. So this will also be a non-bonding state. And this also has zero energy. Okay. So I have been able to write down without looking at anything that there should be a bonding state which is all pluses, there should be an anti-bonding state which is alternately plus and minus, and there should be non-bonding states which are plus plus minus minus. But of course when you have an infinite number of atoms, then you have infinite number of orbitals which are all, because every one of the hydrogen atoms is going to contribute one orbital, and if you have infinite number of orbitals, then you have infinite number of molecular orbitals, and you cannot really label them as 1, 2, 3, 4 etc., because where do you end, because there is infinity, infinity is only a concept. So what you do in that particular case is you have to go back to a different picture. So in order to do that, you have to find out how you can actually write down the coefficients of every one of the atomic orbitals in a given state. So if you want to do that, we have to exploit the symmetry of the system, which so far we have not done. That is, we have the Hamiltonian which is given by minus h cross squared by 2m del squared plus V crystal of R. Okay. Now in our case it is actually a one dimensional system that I am looking at. So in the one dimensional system H1d, I can write it as minus h cross squared by 2m d squared by dx squared plus V crystal of x, and V crystal of x has the periodicity V crystal x plus a is equal to V crystal x. So which means that I am looking at this system. the distances are A, internuclear distances between nearest neighbors are A. So, what I have is this Hamiltonian, and if I take a translation operator, a translation operator, let me say Tn. Okay. So, what this translation operator Tn does is, when it operates upon a function f of x, it will give me the function f of x plus Na. So, that is a translation operator. Okay. It just shifts the 0 of the function, okay. Or in other words, if the function was now located on atom at the origin, it shifts by the origin by n times the internuclear distance, or the origin is shifted to the nth atom. So, in other words, if I am looking at Tn operating upon the wave function psi of x, you get psi of x plus Na, which is actually no different from what I have written in the previous line, but just that I have used psi of x instead of f of x. Now, if you look at the Hamiltonian, Hamiltonian commutes with Tn. That means, whether Hamiltonian operates upon Tn first on a function is equal to the Tn operating upon the Hamiltonian, the resultant of the Hamiltonian operating on the function f of x. That is the order in which you operate on a function by either the Hamiltonian or the translation operator does not matter. So, you can operate first by Tn and then by the Hamiltonian, or first by the Hamiltonian and then by the Tn, the result is exactly the same. So, when this happens, we know that the translation operator Tn is Hermitian, and so is the Hamiltonian. So, if we assume that the eigenstate of the Hamiltonian is non-degenerate, then if psi of x is a non-degenerate state, non-degenerate eigenstate of H, then it is also an eigenstate state of Tn. What we mean is the following: we mean that H psi x is equal to energy psi x, then if psi x is non-degenerate, Tn psi x is equal to lambda n psi x is actually equal to psi of x plus Na. Okay. Well, we have got this result. What happens if the states are degenerate? That is quite simple. What you have to do is, if the states are degenerate, then you have to make a particular linear combination which is an eigenstate of both the Hamiltonian and the translation operator. So, but in order to avoid that kind of a complication of having to find appropriate linear combination which are eigenstates of both H and Tn, I chose non-degenerate eigenstates, and non-degenerate eigenstates are obviously the eigenstates of both the commuting operators. Okay. Having given this, what we have is, see, look at the crystal potential V of x. So, V of x is equal to V of x plus Na. So, if the crystal potential has to be same, then the charge density should also be periodic. So, what we mean by that, rho of x must be equal to rho of x plus n a, because if the charge density is not periodic, the potential cannot be periodic. So, if, and we know that the charge density is related to the absolute square of the wave function. So, which means that the modulus square of psi of x must be equal to modulus square of psi of x plus n a. Okay. So, once that is said, it means that psi of x must be equal to some e to the power I theta n psi of x plus n a, or let me write the other way around. Psi of x plus n a must be equal to e to the power I theta n psi of x, then in that case psi of x plus n a squared is equal to psi of x squared, okay, modulus squared, that is. So, the charge density will be periodic. Okay. We also have other properties of the translation operators. The other properties that we have are the following, that is Tm Tn psi of x is equal to Tm psi of x plus n a equal to psi of x plus m plus n times a, and equal to T of m plus n is also equal to T n T m, because you can do the translation either first by n or first by m, both of them are the same, or you can do a combined translation which is m plus n. So, which means T of m plus n is equal to T n T m, which means the following, that is T m T n psi of x is equal to e to the power I theta n theta m, let us say e to the power I theta n psi of x, or this is equal to e to the power I theta m plus n psi of x. So, you follow that. So, what we have is a very interesting result, that is the phase factor that I am looking at, theta m plus n must be equal to theta m theta n, theta m plus theta n. Okay. So, theta m plus n is equal to theta m plus theta n. So, this is possible. This implies that theta m should be of the form some constant k times m a, where a is a translation vector. So, if this is the case, then I know fully well that theta m plus n is equal to k times m plus n a, and theta m plus theta n is equal to k m a plus k n a is equal to k times m plus n a. Okay. So, to satisfy the condition that theta m plus n is equal to theta m times theta n, I must have theta of the form theta m equal to k m a. Okay. So, if I do this, then I get the following result. The eigenstate psi of x, if I take of my state and then translate it by T of n, then I will get this to be equal to, and now I can label the eigenstate by k, because k is something that is common to all translations, it does not depend upon the translation. So, I can look at the eigenstate psi as dependent on k. So, I will say T n psi k of x is equal to psi k x plus n a is equal to e to the power I k n a times psi of x. Okay. So, look at this part. Now, I have got a condition that if I have a crystal eigenfunction of the crystal Hamiltonian which is psi k x, then psi k x should satisfy the condition that psi k x plus n a is equal to e to the power I k n a times psi of x. So, this is called the Bloch's theorem. This is a fundamental theorem in solid state physics or in any periodic system. It must satisfy Bloch's theorem, and in one dimension this is also called the Floquet theorem. But having said that, now we must also know what are the values x can take. Okay. So, I mean rather k can take. What values can k take? So, in order to know the values that k can take, what we need to do is consider a ring of n atoms. So, I have my huge ring of n atoms starting from 1, 2 etc. up to n. The internuclear distances are all nearest neighbor internuclear distances are all a. So, now I have this system. So, in this when I do a translation operator, then what happens is that T n psi of x will give me e to the power I k n a times psi of x. Okay. So, it picks up a phase factor which is e to the power I k n a. So, now let me think of making a translation by capital N. So, let me, that is capital N is actually the size of the ring, you have n atoms, and I am going to do the capital N translation. When I do this translation T n psi of x, this will give me e to the power I k capital N times a times psi of x. So, when you have made a translation by 360 degrees on a ring, which is actually a translation by the n translation vectors, capital N translation vectors, then you are coming back to the original point. So, if you started from a point like this one, then this is x, then you make a translation, you come back to the same point. So, because you come back to the same point, the wave function should be single valued, right, because this is what quantum mechanics tells us, that a wave function has to be single valued, otherwise it does not describe any physics. The reason why it does not describe any physics if it is not single valued is because you cannot have two values or two values of probability at a given point. So, what it or you should be able to differentiate it, you will not be able to differentiate it if a function is double valued. So, because it should be single valued, I have psi of x should be equal to psi of x plus n a, okay, or equal to e to the power I k n a psi of x, or in other words I am saying that e to the power I k n a should be equal to 1. Okay. We know fully well that e to the power I k n a is equal to 1 only when k n a, this is true only if k n a is equal to 0 or okay, I should be careful in actually saying this because I have not yet considered that part. That is, what it means is that k n a should be equal to 2 pi times an integer r, r is an integer. Because we know that e to the power I 2 pi r is equal to 1, because that is equal to cos 2 pi r plus I sin 2 pi r, and cos 2 pi r is 1 and sin 2 pi r is 0. So, having said this, what are the integer values that R can take? So, KNA is equal to 2 pi R, and R can be 0, plus minus 1, plus minus 2, etc., all the way. Okay. So, now what does it mean? It means that K can take values 0, plus minus 2 pi by NA, plus minus 4 pi by NA, plus minus 2 into, so this 3, that is 6 pi by NA, and so on and so forth. So, let us see where we are going to stop. I am not going to tell you right now, but let us see what it means. So, it means that if I write down my wave function psi k of x, if I write it in the form sigma over n, okay, e to the power I k n a times phi 1s x minus n a. Okay, so what I have done is I have written it down as though it is a sum over all the orbitals, okay, sum over all the orbital functions phi 1 x x minus n a, but with a phase factor e to the power I k n a. Okay. Now, you see, look at the following way. If k is equal to 0, okay, then it means sigma over n, okay, phi 1 x minus n a, okay. So, psi of x will be equal to this, or I have psi of x equal to phi 1 s x plus phi 1 s x minus a plus phi 1 s x minus 2 a, etc., or it will correspond to the following state. Pictorially it will correspond to the following state, because this is at n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3 and so forth, okay, and you can also have n minus 1, because it is an infinite system. So, n minus infinity to plus infinity you can take as the chain. So, now having done that, supposing k is equal to pi by a, if k is equal to pi by a, then what you will get is the following. You will get plus at n equal to 0, minus at n equal to 1, plus at n equal to 2, minus at n equal to 3 and so on and so forth. So, you get the most antibonding molecular orbital that you can think of if you just take k is equal to pi by a. So, between k is equal to 0 and k is equal to pi by a, which is, let me call it plus minus pi by a to be correct. I will come back to that one later on in the next lecture. K is equal to plus minus pi by a, all possible molecular orbitals can be written. Okay. Now, let us also see the relationship between k and lambda. Okay. So, k, the wave vector is called, k is called the wave vector, k we can write as equal to 2 pi by lambda. Okay. So, if k is equal to 0, what will be the wavelength? Lambda should go to infinity. Okay. That is exactly what this state is, plus, 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 plus. So, this has lambda infinity. Okay. Now let us see what happens when k is equal to let us say pi by a. Okay. So, when k is equal to pi by a, what is the value of lambda? Lambda is equal to 2 pi by k, or that is equal to 2 pi by a, or that is equal to 2a. So, if the wavelength is 2a, let us see what we get. Let us write down the state plus minus plus minus plus minus etc., etc., etc. You see this is 0, a, 2a, 3a, 4a, 5a. So, what you have is the wavelength is going to be 2a. This is a state with lambda equal to 2a. So, k is equal to pi by a will give me the wave function of the molecular orbital, which is totally anti-bonding, and all other allowed values of k in between will give me different kinds of molecular orbitals. For example, let me take the case when k is equal to pi by 2a. So, in this case lambda should be equal to 4a. Okay. If lambda is equal to 4a, what it means is this state plus plus minus minus plus plus minus minus etc., etc. Okay. And this will be having the wavelength which is actually this is the wavelength. Okay. So, that will be having a wavelength lambda equal to 4, and it describes a molecular orbital which is non-bonding, which is plus plus minus minus plus plus minus minus. Now, what you can see from all this is the following, that is, earlier we said that we have an infinite number of molecular orbitals, okay, and to use a chemist notation of actually numbering these molecular orbitals from 1 to infinity is just untenable. So, it is better to do something else, and the something else that we did was actually represent these molecular orbital wave functions as though they are some kind of waves whose the phase or the coefficient of the molecular orbital at a site n is given by e to the power I k n a, and then I have this wave e to the power I k n a that is going through the entire lattice n equal to minus infinity to plus infinity, and I see that using this I can describe all my molecular orbitals. So, what the physicist would do is describe the states by k, but what the chemist will do is describe the states as though they are molecular orbitals and they number them, but numbering the molecular orbitals when you have an infinite number of states or an infinite number of atoms is not feasible, and so you go back to the physics literature and use their wave vector k, which is 2 pi by lambda, where lambda is the wavelength of the repeat unit of your molecular orbital wave function. You use that to represent your eigenstate. Okay. So, this is how one can actually get the molecular orbital pictures. Okay. So, now I have given you some illustration of different orbitals that I have given you, which is actually k is equal to 0, k is equal to pi by a, and k is equal to pi by 2a. And next what I will do in the next class is actually show what are the possible values of k and why we should limit the values of k between minus pi by a and pi by a, and I will also discuss later on how you can extend it or go beyond one dimensional physics into 2-dimensional systems and 3-dimensional systems as we go by, and not just 1s orbitals, how we can go into p orbitals, d orbitals and so forth and describe the energy bands, but those things will all come in the next lecture. I think this is a convenient point to stop my 4th lecture, and I will stop here. We will continue with this in the next class. Thank you.